actually like to zoom in a little bit now, Carmel, if we can, and I'd love to actually share some stories. So we're seeing a range of initiatives happening across Australia, and we're also seeing a range of solutions being put in place by our customers as they start to think about how they might engage in the transition economy and how they might sequester carbon. So I'd love you to talk about maybe a couple of stories that you have or a couple of examples that you have, and also to talk a little bit about how CBA is actually helping farmers who do sequester or reduce their carbon footprint, what we can do to help.
Yeah, thanks, Tash. One thing I'd really just call out, if it's not sort of coming across to the audience already, is that Commonwealth Bank really understands how important these markets are going to be in the new environment where climate change is such an important part of our world and addressing those issues. And so we're working really, really hard to be ready to support our customers in that regard. And one example of that is when a farmer or a project is being registered and there is debt on the title, for example, of the property. The bank, as an eligible interest holder, needs to provide approval for that project to go ahead. And that's a process that we've invested a lot in, making sure that we can turn that around really, really quickly. And that's really important for farmers so that their project isn't held up. So, that's one example of things that we're really doing to try and make ourselves really ready to support this market because we understand how important it is. As Tash said, we do have carbon specialists. That's another way that we're really sort of building our capabilities to support people as they, engage with us on carbon farming. We have our bankers who would love to talk about this at any opportunity. And events like today, we're really trying to put together as much education to support awareness and knowledge build as we can. We speak at a lot of events. We prepare a lot of written material that we make available as well. So there's just a couple of examples of things we're doing. Plenty more to come. The most exciting one for me is the CBA Agri Green Loan, which is a purpose-built solution developed by the Agri team to support farmers in particular. It is discounted finance for approved eligible purposes, which we know deliver environmental benefits. And of course, carbon farming through the practice changes we've outlined really improves our soil productivity, for example, and many other benefits of getting more carbon into your landscape. So therefore, the Agri Green Loan is immediately eligible for supporting carbon projects and the practice change to sequester that carbon. So to give you a few examples of how Agri Green Loans have been used in that sort of context, we have a cattle producer in central Queensland, so not the easiest country to farm. They're undertaking a soil carbon project, but because the rainfall's so low, it's harder to sequester carbon in that environment. So you have to do it over a really large number of hectares, i.e. at scale, to make it economic. And so those soil sampling costs to get going on a soil carbon project in that part of the world are not immaterial. And we were able to support that farmer with that upfront investment to get into that carbon project and make the practice changes to sequester that carbon, which were a lot about rehydrating the landscape and managing compaction. So that's one example. Moving down to New South Wales, we have another cattle farmer who used our Agri Green Loan. The practice change that they were interested to sequester more carbon into their soil was rotational grazing, so time-based cell grazing. So that Agri Green Loan was not only used for the project setup cost, but for the wire and water investment to set up that sort of style of grazing. And also converting to sort of more organic-based fertilisers as part of that system. And then the third example I would use, unfortunately, I've just chosen three grazing farmers. This is Victorian farmers, and they've used our Agri Green Loan to do a pasture renovation program. So to support soil carbon sequestration, they've gone with a multi-species pasture renovation, which brings more diversity into the soil and really amplifies the effect of getting more carbon into the soil. So the final point I'd make is that we also have some solutions coming out of Lachlan's world. So very, very specifically also designed to support carbon projects and people undertaking them, but I will leave that for Lachlan to talk more about.
Yeah, thanks, Carmel. And I think just to echo your points, we really want to take an approach of supporting farmers in terms of whatever initiative they might be undertaking. And there are a range of solutions. So Carmel's talked about Agri Green Loan, which we would describe as typically being a great solution for a sustainable farming practice that's around CapEx on farm. We've done really small agri green loans. We've done really large agri green loans. We've also done agri green loans in all sectors. So Carmel's really used the examples of some grazing customers there, but we've done them in horticulture, we've done them in cropping, dryland farming. So we really encourage you to talk to us about what you might be doing on farm. We'll be able to give you an idea fairly quickly as to whether or not it's eligible for an agri green loan. And if it is, we can talk you through that process. Agri Green Loan, though, isn't the only solution that we have available to support you on your journey towards transitioning to a lower carbon future. For some of you, you may just be purchasing eligible equipment or machinery on farm that we may be able to provide you with an energy efficient asset finance arrangement. This is also discounted finance and is really useful when you're actually buying tractors, you might be buying sprayers, you might be buying pivots, you might be buying things that actually we can do under an asset finance arrangement.
On to sort of what we're doing as a group. So I agree, Natasha, it does make us very proud to be able to talk about all of the work that we're undertaking in this space, because it really is market leading, and I'm very glad that you asked about it, so I can talk about it briefly. So in a very basic sense, we are a market maker. So for clients who are looking to offset their emissions, who can't get access to a carbon market, or really want a trusted partnership like their bank to give them access to the market, we're doing that. So we can sell offsets to clients who need them. We can be very bespoke about the way that we procure it, with very specific guidelines on grades and even geography, where they're created, all these sorts of things. For clients who don't or don't have the capacity to open an account with the regulator, we can even surrender credits on their behalf. We can sell them, and it's called a sale and surrender. So that's an arrangement that we can have. In the same way, for clients who are already underway, they're undertaking a project, all they would like is market access. We can give competitive bids for our clients to purchase certificates off them if they do decide that they want to monetize ACCUs that they're creating through a methodology that's right for them. So that's at a very, very base level. For specifically suppliers, you mentioned, Natasha. So the two big barriers that we notice a large bulk of our clients came to us with when it comes to creating projects, one was upfront capital, and then the other was managing market risk of what is essentially a volatile commodity, just like a lot of agricultural commodities, the price is changing all the time. So on the upfront capital part, we can lend in a traditional sense, done a lot of work as a group, and we continue to do work on being able to value carbon streams, include them in a standard cash flow model, and a lot of the work we do here in markets really feeds into that overall capability of our group. In a more specific sense, and I think you were referencing this one before, Natasha, we can do things like prepay for future years' streams of carbon certificates. We can not only do something like lock in prices into the future, agree to buy a certain number of certificates off a client who's deciding to create them for a number of years into the future to give them certainty over pricing for maybe just a portion, 10, 20, 30% of the credits they are going to be generating. We can also prepay those cash flows on day one, potentially to cover a large capital outlay if the setup costs of a project are inhibitive or too expensive for a client. And that is a really efficient way that we can demonstrate to our clients that we're in with them when they're starting a carbon project, that not only will we help them manage the risk, but we'll also lend in a really unique and innovative way to allow them to get involved when otherwise potentially they wouldn't have been able to. So that's a really innovative product. An example of the employment of that was last year. We funded the acquisition of a pastoral lease in WA purely through this prepayment mechanism. So we purchased a portion of the carbon credits coming off our project in WA. for 5 years, we committed to this purchase. We prepaid those funds, and in doing so, allowed the actual acquisition of this pastoral lease. And that was a really, really awesome milestone for us last November. A lot of reverse inquiries around that one because it is quite an innovative product. And the last point I'd make as well is we're not just in it to try to make markets for clients. If people decide they're just not sure what they want to do yet, they're creating certificates, they want to keep them on their balance sheet and own them, or we've also got a whole range of products where we're working on recognizing that value, understanding that they want to keep their flexibility and lending against those credits that sit on their balance sheet.